Hello, welcome to the new episode of Talk Turkey.
Hi, Nevşin. I guess summer is really hot in Turkey by all means. That's also why, we wanted to discuss quite a few issues and we couldn't decide what to discuss. And we decided finally to combine a few issues. So we'll discuss today NATO, some other foreign policy matters, and we will conclude with economy in Turkey. That's still the number one in the agenda of Turks, that's for
They
sure.
are all interconnected though, actually.
Well, everything is interconnected in a way. If you like, we can start with NATO because there is this famous or infamous trilateral memorandum signed between Turkey, Finland, and Sweden. But has it solved the issue or not? And what are the next steps? That's a bit unclear here, and people are still a bit suspicious about the next steps and whether these countries will be joining NATO smoothly. So a lot has changed since last time we discussed the issue. When we discussed the issue, we also mentioned that it wouldn't be a huge surprise if there is a last-minute solution because it happened in the past too between Turkey and NATO. We don't really know what has changed, but Turkish government is somehow presenting it as a big success, and president is even presented as almost like an hero behind the foreign policy victory. And that's at least how it's portrayed. But when we review the trilateral memorandum, we can see that, yes, some of Turkey's legitimate concerns are indeed included, but not all and not very clearly. Moreover, Turkey claims that Sweden promised to extradite 73 nationals, Turkish nationals. And actually, some of them are also Swedish nationals, as far as I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But Sweden doesn't confirm this deal. And it's also not clear, legally speaking, how such a promise can be given. Last time I checked, Sweden was a democratic country, and Swedish government does not have a control on the judicial system, and this would also be against the rule of law in any democratic country. But as we discussed in our previous episodes, I think the main issue is still, and the main challenge is the definition of terrorism and terrorist. It's a major difference between Turkey and Sweden, but also between Turkey and other EU member states, Turkey and the West. On the one hand, it's clear that Sweden has a PKK issue and their definition of terrorism needs to be adapted into the realities of the world. And Sweden is making some changes. It's also promised in the memorandum as well. But even after these changes, there will still be a very big gap between definitions of Turkey and Sweden. And more importantly, the probably interpretation of definitions, because even if they are both in line with the European standards, interpretation is really important. Moreover, considering the country reports of European Commission, reports coming from the Council of Europe, decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, even if a country like Sweden is convinced that a person is a terrorist, I'm not sure how they are going to extradite someone, especially if some people have dual citizenships. There are really major concerns about fair trial in Turkey, freedom of justice, the rule of law. And while there are all these concerns, and there are legitimate concerns backed by all these European reports as well, how this is going to happen? That's one issue. On the other hand, PKK, PYD, and some left parties in Sweden are also doing their best, I think, to sabotage the agreement between Turkey and Sweden. I don't know if you saw, but some members of the left party posed with the PKK flags 2 days ago in Sweden, and this has also attracted a lot of attention in Sweden. To be honest, there's a point we don't discuss a lot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Russia is behind such attempts to prevent Sweden's accession, especially considering the close ties between PKK and Russia and some left parties in Europe and Russia. Because many Western countries see especially PYD as a partner in the fight against ISIS, but they forgot an important point. Both PKK and PYD, they also have close ties with Russia. This is historically the case, but it is still a reality. We should watch this connection and possible provocation attempts actually very closely. In any case, to conclude, maybe it's not a done deal yet, and we may still end up with crisis between Turkey and Sweden, but I personally believe that Sweden and Finland's accession will happen in a way. And what we need to follow here closely is also Turkish-American relations and the potential deal about the modernization of the F-16s. I mean, both Turkey and the US, they are stating that this has nothing to do with the NATO accession of Finland and Sweden and nothing to do with the memorandum signed by Turkey, Finland, and Sweden, but there is clearly a connection. And I still believe that Biden's approach and promise played a major role in this as well. That's why the accession doesn't only depend on, I think, Turkish-Swedish relations, but also Turkish-American relations. We see that Turkey's importance is also again increasing for the West, especially so following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's also why probably despite all major issues between Turkey and the US, we may also see a new rapprochement as a result of changing dynamics in the world. What do you think? Is it really feasible? Can we really see this? And to what extent we can see a rapprochement?
Yeah. I mean, I see your point, but I mean, I think we should remember what was signed between Sweden, Finland, and Turkey is an MOU, which means it's not binding or anything. So Turkey knows that too. But how is Turkey trying to sell this in internal politics? There's one nuance. They keep saying, Erdogan stated that too. Erdogan said, well, this is a big success for Turkey because for the first time, YPG and FETÖ are actually underlined. They are in now official NATO documents. So this is a success for Turkey. He keeps saying that. But the nuance is, yes, YPG and FETÖ, which Turkey believes are terrorist organizations, they are stated. They are in this memorandum. They're in the official NATO documents, but they're not stated as terrorist organizations. They are stated there as only some organizations. So actually, I mean, Erdogan keeps saying, well, that's a big success for Turkey. But for example, some former diplomats, they're saying actually this is it will be counterproductive for Turkey's efforts, actually. It's just, because they're being stated in the NATO documents, but as normal organizations, not terror organizations. I mean, so actually there is that nuance that's important, but Mr. Erdogan does not accept that. So, I mean, the problem is, what they call this megaphone diplomacy Erdogan is doing. Basically, he uses this megaphone diplomacy, like saying everything out loud to the public, everything in a high tone, whatnot. He does all these things for domestic politics. Obviously, we'll come to that in a while, maybe. But Turkey has lost its kind of like foreign policy anchor in that sense. But yes, I mean, in the beginning of Russia-Ukraine war, Turkey started selling Bayraktar drones to Ukraine. Turkey has been selling Bayraktar drones to Ukraine, and actually they were co-producing Bayraktar drones. So in that sense, Turkey was in a sense lucky, since it has been doing that. But then other than that, yes, Turkey keeps its position that way. But for example, one other incident happened. All these claims about Ukrainians, they claim Russia is basically stealing Ukrainian grain and taking it from Ukrainian ports and selling it to the world, right? So there were 3 ships, and one was seized by Turkey, actually one of those ships, Zibek Zoli. And Turkey stopped this ship in Sakarya, Karasu. And obviously the expectation was Turkey would not let the ship go because Ukrainian grain is being carried by a Russian ship. But eventually Turkey let that ship go. So I think what they're trying to do is yes, I mean, they are this government, I mean, they are committed to NATO because they believe it serves Turkey's interests better, but they cannot let Russia go at the same time. So I think they're still trying to play this dual game, and they're going to try to play this as long as they can. Because, I mean, on the one hand, while there is this, they think they can also financially make use of this situation. There is that facade of the story. And also there is that as a political narrative. So this government has been using this narrative as Turkey is strong, with a strong man, strong leader. The best way to govern a country is through a strong leader who decides everything, who does everything. So this is why they kind of feel for Putin. It complements their political narrative. So they cannot just let Russia go and then start blaming Russia for this and that. So they're still keeping their distance to the Western narrative about Russia, if you realize. Is there going to be a rapprochement? I think Turkey is going to try to use this card, Finland and Sweden card, as long as they can, because they signed this memorandum, but then Turkey has to approve in Turkish parliament the entrance of Sweden and Finland to NATO, and the parliament, the majority is the government, so they still hold this card. And I think they're going to try to hold on to that as long as they can. And yes, it depends on United States Turkey relations. They're going to try to get this F-16 deal. And maybe, I think my assumption, they're going to try to push for F-35 deal again. Since Turkey bought S-400 systems from Russia, like nobody knows why. They were kicked out of F-35 program, and they're trying to get back into the program somehow, or, to take their money back. So I think they'll try that too. I mean, this is what they would do. And although the war is prolonging and now we're entering a new kind of a Cold War, the government is also realizing that Turkey is in a critical position. And there was this article on Financial Times the other day. It made quite the headlines in Turkey. And actually, I'm just trying. Gideon Rahman wrote the article, and Rahman says, yes, Erdogan is a really important player, and if we push him, and we're entering this new Cold War, so let's not corner Erdogan that much. Let's not corner him that much, and try to please him, appease him. And he needs money, so let's just give the money he needs to him, and let's get it sorted out. So also, the government is observing this approach in the West too, and I believe they're going to try to make use of that. That's my assumption.
Yeah, and I mean, that article, I think what is voiced there is not also totally isolated either. I think we see a similar trend or similar messages coming, especially from the United States in the last few weeks as well. And the issue is that, I think Turkish government is still using the changing dynamics in the world as a leverage, because, despite all issues Turkey is facing with at the moment, Turkey is still at a very critical point geostrategically and can really be very important still for the West. And that's also something probably an important point some other actors in the region should understand, because when we see this dialogue and all this NATO summit, when all eyes were turning to Turkey, we have also seen that some partners in the region of the West were really disappointed as well, especially Greeks, for example, but also Kurds in Syria. They were believing that, again, West is just turning away because they believe that Turkey is more important and all. But this is, they are repeating in a way the same mistake. We have been criticizing Turkish foreign policy all the time, but I think some other actors in the region, they should also criticize their foreign policies and review some of the mistakes they've been repeating throughout the years. Turkey has major issues, social, economic, political. We keep talking about them. And the relations between Turkey and the US and Turkey and the EU are probably at historic low. And Turkey did many mistakes, and some of these players used Turkey's mistakes very well to position themselves as good allies of the West. But there's something these actors somehow cannot perceive, though. Their importance, their impact, their level of influence are also limited. So when they establish good relations with the West, they immediately start to overestimate their power. They start to believe that the US and the EU would just follow their anti-Turkey agenda no matter what. And they believe that the US and the EU would be there for them no matter what, whenever they need. So this is, I think, a big strategic mistake. Greece can be useful to a certain extent for Eastern Mediterranean, to a limited extent against Russia. Kurds can be useful against ISIS, but when it comes to Turkey, its potential impact is still quite big, despite all problems. Turkey is an actor in many regions. Black Sea, Balkans, Eastern Mediterranean, Caucasus, Middle East, Central Asia. That's why I think those actors in the region, they should understand also this realpolitik as well, not to be disappointed all the time. You like it or not, realpolitik is there, realities of the world is there, and long-term solution in the region is finding a way of rapprochement with Turkey rather than really turning to Europe and US all the time, which is not very easy, of course, under the current circumstances, especially with the government. But that's the reality. We criticize Turkish foreign policy a lot, but I think they should also review their mistakes too. And now we see, for example, another tension. We see a new tension in the Aegean Sea. There's an old story. It keeps happening. It has been happening for decades now. and politicians on both sides of the Aegean Sea, they keep using and abusing this. I mean, I don't know if this can escalate or what are the reasons behind it. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it goes back to 1990s, where Greece started claiming that the continental shelf of the Aegean Islands is 12 miles. Then Turkey said, well, if you're saying it's 12 miles, this is casus belli for us, which means like a reason, justifiable reason for war. And then since Turkey said this is casus belli, then Greece started arming the islands, which is against the international agreements. So now Turkey started complaining about that. Actually, Erdogan is raising this issue. Erdogan is saying, why is Greece arming the islands? That's against the international agreements that we've signed, and that Turkey has been raising this issue.
It didn't happen yesterday, though, right?
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, it didn't happen yesterday. It's been going on for years and years and years. And I mean, this Turkey-Greece problem, I mean, the Aegean problem. So both sides are sometimes, they use maximalist narratives. And then when each side use maximalist narrative, then it's really hard to find a common ground. I mean, that's the issue. And they both use this maximalist narratives whenever they need it domestically. So, that's why it's like a gangrene almost in this Aegean, almost there's no solution sometimes because both sides act irrationally in a sense. So yeah, Erdogan raised this issue, but I think what Turkey is pissed. And it's not only the government, actually. I see that narrative in the opposition circles also. This new American military bases in Greece. Some even nationalist politicians and opinion leaders, they claim that the United States is actually having these bases in Greece to invade Turkey. They're saying America is circling us. Why are they circling us? What are they planning? Why all these military bases in Greece? And Erdogan also raised that concern, and he said, what are these bases for? They're telling us these bases are for Russia, but it's irrelevant. What Russia? Are they against us? So all of a sudden there's that concern. So they all got intertwined and it become confusing. So they're both, these islands, arming the islands is an issue for Turkey, and I think also these United States bases in the Greece, also Turkey started seeing this as a problem also. So all these problems intertwined. But as far as I see, America is trying to act as a balancer because they also signed this memorandum with Greece, where America says they are entitled to peace in the Aegean, whatnot. But then they're gonna give security guarantees to Greece. But I don't think that means that the United States is going to be aggressive against Turkey or anything. I think they're trying to act as a mediator in the Aegean issue. But Turkey. So like we talk about in Turkish politics, we talk about one issue like crazy for like a week. And if you were in Turkey, if you were watching the news, you think we're going to war to Greece. But it just takes a week, and then a week later, we just forget about it. There's something totally new. We were talking about this East Mediterranean gas issue like crazy. And then they decided to mend the relations with Israel. And now this East Mediterranean gas crisis is on the shelf. Like nobody's talking about that anymore. So again, with Greece, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like a huge problem boiling right now. But maybe like a couple of weeks later, we will not be talking about that. So who knows?
Could that be that also government is using such issues to divert the agenda in Turkey? I mean, of course, when you talk about foreign policy issues, both success but also threats, then you don't talk about the main issue. And the main issue in Turkey nowadays, and our last topic for today, is also economy. I mean, foreign policy is important and probably relevant as well for the situation of economy in Turkey, but still by far number one issue in the agenda of people in Turkey. It's economy, and especially the inflation rates. I mean, one may think in the Western Europe, like, so what? Inflation is rising in Europe too, but it is impossible to compare the numbers. It is also the narrative of the pro-government media in Turkey, actually. Inflation is a problem all over the world, but there is a slight difference, and not so slight maybe, because the inflation rate reached a new historical high. I mean, according to the official numbers...
I can show it if you like.
Yes,
it's official numbers.
78.6%.
Exactly.
That's the official number, and people don't really trust this number. And then there is an organization called ENAG, It's an independent organization by Turkish economists, and they claim that the actual number is 175%. I mean, here in the Western Europe, we talk about, oh my God, this is approaching to 10%. And this is historical high for Belgium, for Germany and all. And in Turkey, we are talking about 175%, like almost 18 times more. So to put it in a context, I mean, so that people can really understand what we mean by high inflation. And I mean, also the government is doing its best in a way to a limited way, but they also increase the salaries like up to 42%, which you cannot even imagine in the Western Europe, like increasing salaries 42%. In Belgium, the salaries are increased because of the inflation rate, like a few percent. And many business organizations are complaining that how they can afford increasing salaries suddenly 5%. So in Turkey, the salary increases up to 40%, but as this is also far from the reality, and considering the high inflation rate, this didn't even make people happy. I mean, suddenly it's almost like 50%. Their salaries like really increased, but it didn't make people happy because in terms of purchasing power, it doesn't mean much. People are really, really struggling. And this is becoming a major issue. And I think this is becoming a major challenge for government as well. I mean, considering that elections are in less than 1 year now, this certainly has consequences for government. And I mean, whatever they do, government coalition, they try to change the trend in terms of the support to government, but they cannot reverse the trend as far as I understand, right?
No, they cannot like this. You know what the problem is? The problem is, well, the institutions are shattered and they're not working effectively. That's the problem. I mean, we're talking about inflation numbers. Let me give you an example about that. All these inflation numbers are actually measured by Statistics Institute, which used to be like a credible, normal European standard institute. But then, as the inflation started rising, there's been all this commotion within the institute, and actually the chair of the institute has changed like several times. Co-chairs have resigned. Like something is boiling there, and they come up with these numbers, and nobody's believing them. So the institute lost its credibility big time.
We don't know details, right? Like we don't even know like how they calculate this number.
He used to be with Deva Party. Now he switched to E Party, an opposition party. And actually, I interviewed him one time, Demir, and he kind of explained. And that was back his time, like a couple of years ago. Now it's probably worse. So what they're doing, it's like a trick, basically. He said we were checking for the cheap. Like for example, they're checking the price of the cheese. Say they're going and checking, like they're finding the cheapest cheese ever, and then they're putting that number there. So it's just like deceiving yourself in a sense, because I mean, Turkish purchasing power is horrendous. I mean, we go to the market ourselves, we can see it ourselves. It doesn't matter what number you give me officially. I mean, you tell me, oh, it's just, don't worry about it, it's 80%. Well, yeah, I can observe it's not 80% actually. I believe the price of egg in a year has risen more than 200%. So I mean, official numbers do not mean anything after a while. But anyways, so Mr. Erdogan, they were saying as a government, the inflation would start falling by June, because they were calculating, with the summer, the food prices start getting a little lower. So you start, the tension.
And tourism as well.
Exactly, tourism as well. But according to the calculations, basically did not end up true. So it keeps rising. Now Erdogan said, well, we have to wait until December. Why? Like, how is it going to fall? Like nobody understands, because they keep following the same half crazy economy policy. So like they're just saying, just be patient. By December it'll be falling. But like how? Why? We don't know.
In 2023, inshallah.
Well, they used to use that 2023, the 100th year of the Republic, as like the year everything would be like a paradise. That was the discourse. In 2020, everything will be fine. Turkey is going to find natural gas. We'll have our own natural gas, this, and then we'll be rich, we'll be that. But it has arrived. 2023 almost arrived. So they're kind of switching the discourse now. They're saying 2053.
Or 2071.
something or
maybe we can talk about those dates too in the future.
I mean, yeah. So they're kind of postponing it. Okay, like you have to wait 30 years more, but but also he's like losing in the polls. I mean, there are several polls. Maybe we can discuss that in the next talk Turkey. But let me show you this Turkey's category. I mean, look at these other countries. Basically, Turkey used to be one of the biggest 20 economy. Now Turkey is like, we're measuring Turkey with some African countries or like countries in war, like Russia and Ukraine. You see that's the level of inflation. So this does not look like a successful table for the government.
That's also why, I mean, we won't discuss this today, but according to some opinion polls, I mean, AKP is even under 30% first time. So, and even the second party, according to some.
That is why we have all this tension in our foreign policy, I'd say. I mean, let's announce it to the world. There's more to come until the elections, I think, because they need to come up with these epic stories. Somehow, Turkey's fighting against big powers, something. That's why there's inflation.
Well, I guess we will continue to discuss similar issues in August too. We will probably have a short summer break now of 5 or 6 weeks, but we'll be back with new episodes.
Exactly. We'll be back with Talk Turkey. See you.
So I wish all our viewers a nice summer.